James, do you want to talk about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 4, In Plain Sight?
I would love, B, to talk about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 4, In Plain Sight, except it's just called Plain Sight.
Is it just called Plain Sight?
Yup, which feels very wrong, but I bought the DVDs and it just says Plain Sight. Hate that.
I hate that.
I hate that.
What? I hate that so much.
Why is it not called In Plain Sight? Is In Plain Sight like a movie? Like, why does that phrase feel so in plain sight?
In plain sight is a common phrase that people say often. Plain sight, nobody says.
Maybe because like the killer is like plain.
The killer is in plain sight. He's hiding in plain sight.
In plain sight. In plain sight.
The in is there. The word in is so important there.
Maybe they knew people were going to talk about it. They didn't want to say in plain sight.
No.
You know?
I think they just did an episode title whoopsie. They did a whoopsie-doo. They whoopsie-dooed it pretty bad. They whoopsie-dooed it just a little bit.
Little whoopsie-doodle.
They just whoopsie-dooed.
Housekeeping. One thing I do want to say, so I am active on the Criminal Minds Tumblr. No, I will not tell you what my Tumblr is if you don't already know it. And I got a message on there about, whether or not I thought the characters were well written. And
the answer's like no, but also yes.
Yeah, so in the first couple of episodes, we said one of the reasons we liked Criminal Minds was that the characters are well fleshed out and we care about them. One, we recorded that back in October. I'd only seen through season 6. 2, not even. And 2, the characters are fleshed out over the course of the show, but like, if you had only watched the first 6 seasons, you might be like if you only watch the first 6 seasons, you're like, yeah, I know everything about these characters. And then the more time goes on, you're like, huh? Wait a minute. I thought she had a stepdad. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Where's her father? Like, where is she from? Like, you're like, wow, did this happen? Like, yeah.
It's, number one, if we ever say anything on this podcast and you're like, that sounds like it was from 5 weeks ago, it's probably because we recorded this episode like 5 weeks ago. I hate to break it, you guys. We're doing a 15 season podcast. There's a point where we're going to need to get a little ahead. But also number 2, if you think we say anything stupid, yeah, we do. Just go with it. Just go with it, guys. Guys, just go with it.
I do. So, okay, here's the thing about Criminal Minds and the characters. Here's the thing. The show does a really good job of giving you the pieces necessary to create the character for yourself.
You know what they never talk about when Frankenstein is making his monster is the fact that he needed to like source those body parts. Criminal Minds did a really good job of sourcing the body parts. I don't think they did a great job making the miracle of life. So
yeah,
just I think of it like that.
And I think a lot of like, it's the rewatch that really makes the show, because by the time I don't want to spoil like big spoilers. So like, you learn a lot about characters through specific episodes that come later, and they kind of like retcon and like fill in missing moments. So when you watch it the second time and you have those moments in your head, you're like, ooh, I see this and I see that, and they're hinting at this here, and like, oh, now I get Emily's conflict with am I a bad guy, and like, now I understand why Derek is this way, but on the first watch through, you don't have that.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I think, the thing.
Yeah, I think that happens with a lot of... I noticed this a lot in procedurals, is that they're much more fun to watch the second time, because you already know what's going to happen. And I think you already know where the characters are going to end up, so you're like, oh, well, how does this play into their overall journey?
Right.
This is 15 years of television.
Yeah.
This is 15 full fucking years of television.
Yeah.
The characters are not the same people as they were when they began, and they grow in
No.
some wild ass ways.
Spencer Reed. Emily
Spencer
Prentice.
Reed goes to jail, and he should have probably stayed there. Like,
Yeah. He should have been. Okay, we'll get there.
we'll get there.
In season 2.
Like, it's a whole thing. The characters are inconsistent as fuck, and thus so will our conversations of them be kind of inconsistent at times.
Yeah.
Blanket for our whole podcast.
I also think, we talked about how like at some point everyone working on the show just went, you know what, fuck it. We're gonna do what we want. But like I don't think like season 1 really feels like your standard primetime procedural of like, here's some archetypes, here's some fun character moments to make you like them. Here's some cool cases that you're like, ha ha ha, I figured it out first. But it isn't until later that I think the characters kind of take that front seat.
Yeah. And so if we say that a character sucks and we're in seasons like 1 through, we'll say 1 through 3 about, that'll change. We'll probably love that character by the end, but we say that they suck now because season 1 through 3 characterizations. Boy howdy. What a time.
What a time to be alive, honestly.
What a time to be alive in 2005, between 2005 and 2008. What a time.
Wow, what a time to be alive. Okay. Plain Sight, season 1, episode 4, San Diego, California.
Let's get into it. Because, boy howdy. Boy fucking howdy.
Okay.
What an episode.
Can I talk about Jeid now?
Yes. Talk about Jeid. Just yell.
Okay.
Just get into it.
For those of you who don't know, Jeid is the ship name, the couple name for JJ and Reid. And here's okay.
A very unappealing ship name. I'm not gonna lie to you. Not a good one.
Every single ship name with JJ is just J
and then somebody else's name.
Jeid, Gemily, Janelope, Josh, like every single one. Except
but it's also hard because JJ is her name. It's just 2 of that same letter. So it's really hard to make anything else.
The only difference is her fucking canon relationship, which is Willifur. Which just like...
Jilliam. Can you imagine if it had been Jill? It would have just been Jilliam.
Jill. She ends up with someone named Will. Just putting that's the joke. Okay. Jeid. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I think that if this episode had been done well with the 2 of them, and if they had built up this relationship based on friendship, if it had been about like learning each other's, JJ, gets a little nerdy and Spencer like becomes a little jockey, and they kind of like meet in the middle. I think this would have been a great relationship.
Yeah.
I do. I think it would have been like, here's a study on 2 best friends who grow and learn and protect each other. I would have loved that. Instead, we get one episode. We get season 1, episode 4, where JJ spends the entire time looking at Reid like, what the fuck are you talking about? Literally the entire episode. Like, there's his birthday party. And he's like trying to blow out the candles. And she's like, Reid. She's like, Spence, they're trick candles. They won't blow out. And then Derek says, yeah, listen to mommy. Which, okay, do your thing. And she like sticks his tongue out at him. And Reid is like, mommy. Which, okay, step 1. Okay. Okay.
Oh,
I don't know.
Wow.
Right away, I noticed that on this rewatch and I went, oh no. Who is that? Oh no.
I mean,
no,
get down with your bad self. I'm not here to judge anybody, but like, wow.
Also, no, thank you. So then they're on the plane, and Reid says, like, oh, you never know what you get when you type death into a search engine. And JJ's face is literally like, what the fuck? And then they get to the police station, and Reed is like reading the paragraphs and like telling JJ about this like ballet between death and a lover. And JJ looks at him like, bro, what the fuck? Like the whole episode, she's like, ew, dude, you're such a fucking nerd. And then at the end, when he's like, she's on the plane reading, he sits next to her. She does not look up. She's reading, she's drinking her coffee, does not look up at him at all. And then he goes, hey, I heard you like football. And she like smiles at him like, uh-huh. And then just goes back to reading. And then when he continues to stare at her, she like looks at him again. End of episode. Oh, love the setup for this romance. And then a little, I can't. And then a little spoiler for next episode. It goes nowhere. The start of the next episode is Morgan being like, hey, Reed, how was your date with JJ? And he goes, I don't think it's going to work out. Never mentioned again. And then 14 seasons later, she can, oh God. Oh, okay.
I want you to know that I physically had a bad vibe shiver down my spine when you mentioned that they do end up as the, like, Romeo and Juliet kind of esque motherfucking bullshit. We want to talk about that. I do want to talk about how this episode.
Yes.
So, Criminal Minds is a bad show. It had. The first season has 23 episodes. Right? It's a whole network fucking season. That's like 23, 24 hours of television that you get. In hour 4, they were like, let's set up this romance. And then in hour 5, they were like, never again. Like, give it some time. If you're gonna do like a first season inner office romance, number 1, let it build up a little bit more. Or number 2, give it some more time to breathe. Because goddamn, they opened that door and then they slammed it shut. They were just like, no.
Also, like, I don't know much about, TV production, but you film in advance of things airing. So it's not like episode 4 aired, everyone went, ew, and then they cut it. Like, they wrote it like that.
Yeah, they were working probably, I would say, 6 episodes ahead of where they were at, or so.
They were like, we're just gonna, and then I guess I
slam this fucking door immediately.
So I will spoil one thing, because this is what we're talking about this retroactive filling in. So we find out in season 14, we find out what happened on the date. And basically, and this is so fucking funny, Reed gives JJ 2 tickets to a Redskins game. Also, why is she a Redskins fan? She's from Pittsburgh. Why is she not a Steelers fan?
And she lives in DC now. Like,
yeah, but she grew up in Pittsburgh.
Or like, yeah, the Pittsburgh or the like fucking Patriots. Like, you're in a better football area than the Redskins, sweetheart.
Than the Reds. They're now the Washington football team. Thank God. Finally. But,
wow.
JJ, why did they make that character decision for her?
I don't know.
Okay. Like, who grows up in Pittsburgh and is like, yeah, the Redskins?
I grew up in Minnesota and Iowa, and my dad, being a fucking Dallas Cowboys fan, got me weird looks. I cannot imagine growing up in an actual football town like Pittsburgh and not liking the Steelers.
Also, like, if you didn't want her to be a Steelers fan, like, the Eagles are right there in Philly, right?
Yeah.
Like, the Redskins? Okay, not the point of this. Reed...
For 2Ks, we're getting really deep into this, like, football character meta, and I'm not loving it. Just gotta say.
He gives her 2 tickets to a football game and says, will you go to a football game with me? Even if he doesn't say on a date, that's very clearly date behavior.
A date, yeah. If it's just
we find out in season 14 that JJ got Penelope a ticket and said, why don't we make this like a group thing for the youngins on the team? JJ went, go ahead.
I'm gonna be very real with you right here, James.
Yeah.
I haven't watched past season 12.
I know you haven't. I'm here for the both of us.
This is bonkers.
She went, Penelope, listen to me right now. Penelope, I know you hate football, but Reed asked me on a fucking date and I can't fucking do it, Penelope. Please, Penelope, come with me. I'll buy you so much goddamn wine. Please, Penelope, don't make me go on this date with Reed, please. And then Reed was like, I don't think it's gonna work out.
And Gideon got him expensive box tickets.
She paid for box tickets for Penelope to go with them. She went, Penelope, I will drop this $500 so I do not have to go on a date with Reed. That's where JJ's out. And then 14 years later, JJ goes, Reed, I've always been in love with you. Bitch, no! What kind of... Okay, this is what I mean about the writing on this show. Not only did they put in the info of like, it wasn't like a bad date. No. They were like, we're going to tell everyone that JJ purposefully made it not a date. And then we are also going to tell you that she has indeed been in love with him the entire time. So there's that. She's been with a man for 13 years. She has 2 sons with a man, Will, who's fine. But he's, I mean, we'll talk about his issues, but he's, he's fine. Yeah, but all of that was fake. And okay, I can't talk about Gemma. I will start crying.
We can't. We have to get into the actual part of this episode.
Okay.
We have to get into the actual case because we have been recording for nearly half an hour and we have not spoken about this case or all the bullshit that goes into it.
All right. So first off, episode opens with a woman. I 100% thought this was Sasha Alexander the entire time. And I even looked it up, and this is the same year that NCIS starts, which bonkers. So I was like, oh, this must have been like her last like rando role before NCIS. It is not.
Wow, it really does look like her, huh?
It looks exactly like her, but it is a woman named McCarran Kelly.
McCarran Kelly is a very white name.
Yeah.
McCarran.
Yeah.
Sorry to you, hun, but
McCarran's, I mean, you could go for like
it's just
anyway.
The fact that you put Mick in front of Karen and then last name Kelly. Okay.
I mean, it's spelled very Irish.
It's spelled very Irish,
which
makes it even more of a white name, but that's fine. Continue.
Yeah. So she's exercising, doing her Pilates,
like step aerobics. Yeah, it's like a fun step aerobics thing. I will say they upped their licensed music budget for this episode. Because they're like playing a fucking bop. Like, okay.
Okay.
All right. Open up this episode of Criminal Minds with a bop. Usually they just play like bullshit like TV music that all sounds the same. But this one's a fucking bop.
Yeah. So he comes into the house through the window wearing gloves. And he like turns off the faucet, which is dripping. And he like fixes a utensil on the table so it's neat. They never really talk about that when they do his profile.
Really,
but they made it really obvious that he was like had those kind of I don't want to say OCD tendencies, but that's typically what those kind of
organizational tendencies.
Yeah, like his need for neatness. Yeah, that's not what he mentioned. Although, like, how would you know that, right? You walk into a house and it was like, at some point this sink was dripping. Like, no. So he does that, and then he kills her. But then he like vacuums the floor, puts away her Pilates stuff, wipes down
James,
every
I do have
surface.
to tell you that is not Pilates, bud.
Isn't
I don't know what you think. No.
Isn't Pilates like the bouncing ball and the steps?
No. It does have a ball. It is not. Pilates is like spicy yoga. This is like
step aerobics.
Yeah, this is more like not spicy aerobics. Yoga. Step aerobics.
I was gonna take a Pilates class. Is that step aerobics? That's the one I'm gonna take.
No. Yeah, what that woman is doing in the episode is definitely step aerobics and not Pilates, which is just spicy yoga. I have to say that because my mom would get on my ass if I did not. So
okay, fine. She's
a staunch spicy yoga defender. Can I name this episode Spicy Yoga?
Yeah,
Please?
yeah, you
Can
can.
I?
Yeah. Okay, he vacuums, he puts away her step aerobics platform. He like cleans everything, and then he smashes silver and glass and jewelry onto the ground, and then he writes a verse, well, half a verse of a 17th century ballad between death and a woman on a mirror.
He
And
also, I
yeah.
feel like this is a very important point. He glues their eyes open,
Yeah, and they
which
call him the
is,
Tommy Killer
yeah.
because he glues their eyes wide shut, which is a musical reference or a rock opera, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I didn't look it up. I should meant to.
I did not either.
Tommy, eyes wide. Here we go. Tommy rock opera. Oh, The Who. It's the Who musical.
Sure.
The Who's Tommy.
You've touched upon an aspect that I have little to no experience in.
I was like, how do I not know this musical? Oh, because it's a jukebox musical before my time. Okay. So we see that, and then it cuts Reed's birthday. He's turning 24.
I'm only 2 years younger than Spencer Reed is in this episode.
I'm 3 years older than Spencer Reed is in this episode.
And
Okay.
I kind of hate it here.
Yeah.
I kind of hate that
Yeah.
that like Twinkie dumbass Spencer Reed has like a better life than I do. Like I kind of
Would
hate
you
it here.
say that Spencer Reed has a better life?
He has a nicer house than I do, and that
Yeah,
alone,
that's fair.
he has like
But he
3
makes like
bedrooms in his
100K
apartment.
a year.
That's also true. He has like a 3-bedroom apartment. Though I'm like, shit, that'd be fucking nice.
I mean, I would love to have a
Sorry.
3-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. Wouldn't you?
I have a 2-bedroom.
I have one.
I mean, that's fair.
Sorry, continue.
No, you're fine. The joke about JJ being mommy, which is
Gross.
something that happens. Reed is wearing this stupid hat, and he goes to Gideon, and he's like, "Can I take the hat off?" And Gideon's like, "Oh, I wouldn't."
I know, that's actually kind of fun. That's
was
honestly
very
my
cute.
favorite Gideon like moment in these early episodes, where he's just
Yeah.
like, "I wouldn't take off the hat." So I'm
I
just
think
like,
my
fine, I
favorite
guess I'll
Gideon
fucking
moment-
suffer.
My favorite Gideon moment is next episode. I'll tell you what it is when we get there. Yeah, it's very funny. And then Reed is like, this whole episode is just like, why can't Reed get a date?
I love that they. We talked about this earlier. They like tried to make this into a workplace comedy and didn't know how to. This is a very workplace comedy subplot that they did where like, why can't Reed get a date? And like, by the way, this is a serious case about rape.
Can I tell you something hilarious?
Yes, please.
In canon, I'm about 90% sure of this. In canon, Reed has had sex once in his life. We learn early on that he's not a virgin. And then he does not sleep with anybody for the entirety of the show.
So who's Reed's one and done?
We don't know. We don't know who it is. I would assume it's someone in like college, you know.
But who's that one and done who, number one,
It happened before
the only fun you could have with Spencer Reed is on a date. I feel like that man's, maybe
Can
I'm
you
just
imagine
too gay.
Spencer Reed's first time?
You would need a date to recover from that. I would make him buy me food for that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's so strange as to who they decide who Spencer is. They're like, he's kind of a dork, but he's sweet. And then they're like, by the way, he did have a one and done at some point earlier. You don't need to know about that. It's like, hey, what?
Yeah, they're like teasing him for being a virgin, and he's like, I'm not a virgin, like I've had sex with someone. And then like he does not date anybody else for 15 years. So I mean, I know there's like, you can put shit together however you want to, but like in canon, we know other people are getting it. Emily Prentice gets it. JJ has 2 fucking kids. We know Derek is getting it. Hodge has a wife for a bit. Rossi gets it. Spencer? No.
None. Absolutely none.
Garcia even says at one point, like, I do well for myself. Literally everyone has, even Garcia's passing. Well, Garcia dates Kevin, which ill, but also like she dates him for a bit. Like everyone has. Emily Prentice has a Sinto Win weekend. JJ's got a haha, I've got to get home to my husband a couple of times. Reed, nothing. Nothing.
He dates people, but that's it. But also not really.
But also not really. I wouldn't call Maeve dating. I mean,
would? I don't know. It's fucking weird. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Reed talks about the search engine Google like it is a goddamn oddity in the world.
I don't think they can say Google. Now it has become like synonymous with like, I'm just gonna Google it. But back then he would have had to say like, I used Google.
Yeah,
they'd have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. So he says some weird ass shit like, you should see what comes up when you type the word death into a search engine. He says it like they've only had this technology for a day.
Well, it's because Elle is like, so what? Is he a literature professor? And then Reed's like, or has an internet connection. Like, Reed's the one being like, or the internet
exists. It's existed for about 5 years or so. Yeah.
In season 2, there's an episode where Reed is like on a laptop in a police precinct, and then he goes, "Does this building have wireless internet?"
This show doesn't know what to do with the internet.
2005, 2006, 2007. What's the internet? I had a Facebook in 2007.
Yeah, it's like the internet came widespread around 2000. They had this technology for like 5 years. Like, y'all?
Wild.
Anyway.
Wild. Yeah. Yeah, so we find out that they're using the 17th century ballad, but they're only using, we find out later, but basically he's only using Death's verses. He's not, like, there's no conversation happening. Because the ballad is a conversation between Death and a woman begging for her life, but the killer only leaves Death. And later when he calls, he says, "I am Death." So he's very much like, putting himself into it. Oh, and then, so I thought this was really interesting. JJ is not the one who presents the case. No one actually kind of presents the case. Hodge gets a phone call, and then he says, "Sorry guys, party's over. We've got a case." And then JJ just has 7 packets with the info, hands it out. Hotch is like, the Tommy killer because of the musical, and it's in San Diego. And then he says, "Meet you on the plane." No wheels up.
Not a wheels up. I'm really... Not a wheels up. Maybe we named our podcast bad, and we're just not getting to a wheels up.
No,
maybe we've done a bad.
No, man. Oh, you haven't gotten there. Okay, so at the end of season 13, they're like trying to decide if they're like, I don't know, gonna keep being FBI or something. Like, it's so weird. But they're all like, wheels up, hands in the circle, wheels up. And every one of them says wheels up and puts their hand in. And at one point, JJ's like upset, and he's like, "JJ, wheels up?" And JJ's like, "Yeah, wheels up."
Like I said,
why?
Listen. They needed a fun catchphrase to put on merch. And we should be glad that they don't own the idea of wheels and the direction of up, so we can also put it on merch.
You're right. Okay.
I know, I'm right. I always am.
You are always right. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that JJ's not picking cases yet. So her role right now as media liaison is like talking to, I guess, the police precinct, talking to the press, and that's pretty much it. They also
she doesn't get this case. They just kind of
it just happens.
Go.
Which in the future that still does happen, but JJ is the one who gets the call. And in this case, they made it Hotch. And then later, when they show up to the police precinct, Hotch is the one who shakes the guy's hand, and then he introduces JJ. You know, so whereas in the future, JJ is like, "Hello, we've already spoken on the phone. I'm the one who's been talking to you." In this case, they're like, "Hi, I'm Hotch. This is JJ." Like, yeah.
Yeah, they really don't know what to do with JJ's character quite yet. No. And they really don't for all of season 1. No. They're really just figuring it out because they made up a job position for her.
Yeah, they were just like, okay. Yeah, because I think at this point, she's just media liaison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But later she becomes like the communications liaison. So I think in this season 1, there, and I think this is purely a show change and not any sort of actual promotion she got. But
Yeah.
I think that in season 1, they're really using her as like the face to the press
Yeah.
and like PR and that kind of stuff. Whereas in later seasons, they give her the added like someone has to sort through all these cases and it can't be Hotch. So
Because Hotch already does so much paperwork. Yeah, they just
actually,
don't know what
no.
they're doing with her this season. It's a little weird.
No, you know what I just realized though? So, and I realized this when I rewatched episode 1 with the commentary. Gideon is the unit chief. Gideon
Yeah.
is the unit chief, and Hotch is something else. So maybe JJ is the media liaison. Hotch is doing that communications work, and Gideon is the unit chief. And then when Gideon leaves, Hotch becomes unit chief, and JJ takes on the communications role.
There you go,
I think,
Criminal Minds. We fixed your fucking show.
except there's one problem with that.
Yeah, don't talk about it. Don't talk about the problems with that. Is that Gideon doesn't leave until like season 3 or whatever? 2, 3?
Also, like, what the fuck is Rossi's job? What does he do? I don't know. He just came back and was like, I'm here now.
Give me an office.
Give me an
Bye.
office. Bye. Okay, we're not there.
God, what a fucking power move to be able to walk into your old workplace, be like, give me an office, and then they do.
I'm back.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What else about this episode?
Oh yeah. Okay.
What about this episode?
They still don't care about the name. JJ doesn't do anything to make him not the Tommy killer. We're still into naming serial killers.
Yeah, they really just like take that and run with it. They make no mention of trying to stop it.
Yeah.
I think that's so fun.
I think something changed in the real world and they updated themselves to match.
Probably.
I think at this point maybe we're still naming serial killers. We're still doing, Green River Killer, who is the Golden State Killer. We're still doing, the Night Stalker and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. See you on the plane. No reels up. That's a sad face.
I'm very sad.
Yeah. So we find out that the killer strangled them with wires and he brought his tools and he took his tools, which makes them think that he's got like a kit. He has like a murder kit like in his car. Oh, I just saw this note that I wrote that said nobody told AJ Cook about the romance. That's why
they forgot to let her know.
Yeah. And Gideon's doing his eye drawings.
Yeah, he's just doodling.
Just drawing his eyes, letting it stew in his
really
old
just
brain.
Letting it percolate inside of his head. Yeah.
He's like, it's the eyes, and he says that like 4 times this episode. He's like, it's the eyes.
He's just like, I just don't understand how eyes work. It's just the eyes.
It's just the eyes, though.
It's just the eyes.
Yeah. Also, okay. So another thing I noticed when they get to the police precinct is the subtitle says Task Force Headquarters, San Diego Police Department. And the guy that introduces himself, it says, hi, I'm the head of the task force.
Yeah.
Which we don't get. Later, it's just like local people being like, hey, 3 people have died. Could you like help us?
Could you help us out?
Yeah.
They sometimes have this I've noticed they have it sometimes when they're in like bigger cities that ostensibly have more of like a budget to like make task forces, or like when the case has gone on for longer, then they have like a specific task force. But
yeah,
they really just kind of are like, hey, what's up? We're a task force. Isn't that a cool title for this? We're a task force.
Yeah.
Like, okay, get it, I guess.
And they say the same thing also in episode 1, which I didn't even notice, was that when they go to Seattle, there's an FBI task force there.
Yeah.
Already there's an FBI task force, and they show up. So I just thought that's interesting because I don't remember there being task forces later. But yeah, you could totally be right that it's like a bigger city case or a high profile case.
Yeah, they just kind of are like, fuck it. Let's just change it up. Let's just change up the language here so we have something spicy for this episode.
Yeah. Also, something they did that I thought was interesting is they call the victims, they keep saying high-risk victims at a high-risk time of day. So when we say now a high-risk victim, we mean like a sex worker. We mean like a homeless person. We mean somebody's whose quote-unquote lifestyle puts them at high risk to being a victim. Mm-hmm. In this episode, when they say a high-risk victim, they mean high risk to the killer.
Yeah, I noticed that they swapped that, and I was really thrown off by that, actually.
Yeah, it should be a low risk victim. They're in houses with gates in a open, well patrolled neighborhood. Like these are
Mhm.
victims that are at low risk. So it was really interesting to me when they called it like a high risk victim. Also, the middle of the day is a low risk time of day.
Well, yeah, they were doing it like it is high risk to the killer to go in
Yeah.
this time of day. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonky that they did that. I don't know if that was just
Yeah.
something that they decided like across the board. They just finish out their fucking show Bible and they were like, we need to change this. So
Yeah.
or if that was something that again like changed in the real world, so they needed to change it.
It's real bold of you to assume that Criminal Minds has a show Bible.
I assume they have to keep all their shit straight, right? I mean,
They
it's
make
like
one
3
as they
pages
go.
It's
They
like
build every episode, but then they change shit anyway. Ugh, I hate
they
this show.
have a show Bible. It's like 3 pages on the backs of like crumpled receipts, and that's their show Bible.
In someone's drawer, in an office no one uses anymore. Like, yeah.
I would kill to see the show Bible for Criminal Minds, like an early draft of it. I think it'd be so neat.
I would love to know what was left out.
What were they trying to go for with the first season, you know?
Like how much of like character backstory is the actors? How much is the writer? You know what I learned today? I learned that, you know, the episodes where Spencer Reed has a headache, like a bad headache? It's because Matthew Gray Gubler was like, oh, you're firing the women? I want to leave the show too. So they gave him the chance to have a brain tumor, but then it got worked out, and that's where the headaches just disappeared.
That's actually very cool of him.
So I know, that's very cool of him. And like the episode where Spencer gets shot in the leg, it's because Matthew Gray Gubler had a leg injury and needed to wear crutches. So they had Spencer get shot in the leg so his character could wear crutches. I'm like, so many of the plot points in this show are literally the actors being like, excuse me, I would really like a couple of weeks off if you could just like put me in the hospital for a hot minute.
It's interesting, but that is the way that like that is the way that TV procedurals have to work, right? Because
I mean, it's 15 years. Yeah, I can imagine.
You can write a fucking novel, but then the main character might come down with a bad cold. Like you just like there's shit that you just can't control and you have to write around, which is a fun exercise that like screenwriters do to like get their shit together and figure out how to best write around creative things that the actors do.
It's just like, so funny for the show.
It is so funny, but also it's so interesting. I want to see if anybody has a hookup. I want to see the original show Bible for Criminal Minds. Like, what did you have on this pitch docket? Like, what? Just like, what were you going for?
I found a couple of like scenes, the script for a couple of scenes. I can share one for you.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just, I want to see what their show Bible looks like because I want to know what they thought the point of their show was in 2005, you know?
Hey, Criminal Minds, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Hey, Criminal Minds! Hey, Criminal Minds!
Hey, did you like have a coherent timeline? Because I tried to figure it out and
they don't.
No, it does not. It doesn't. And also, even when it does, there is this episode in season 2 that is set on Super Bowl Sunday. It is set February 4th, 2008 in Washington, D.C. You know what JJ wears outside? A fucking crop top. February in D.C. She was a fucking crop top. And I know it's February 4th, 2008.
Hot girl shit. Hot girl shit.
Hot girl shit. Hot girl shit.
It's just hot girl shit, dude. Don't worry about it. It's hot girl shit.
I just like, I can't do it. I'm trying to figure out the timeline so I can write things in certain times, like so I can figure out what time certain episodes take place. None times. It's literally like, so if that's February and this happens 10 months later, it should be this month. No.
They just didn't really care about their timelines.
Criminal Minds, I have some questions, Criminal Minds. Okay.
Can we also question why they... James.
What?
There's a floating picture montage in this episode.
And the voiceovers of the women.
Yeah.
Good job, honey. You're doing great.
And like the little kids coming in, and I'm just like,
Why?
what's the point?
It's
What's the
Gideon's.
point?
It's Gideon's fucking Sherlock mind palace.
It's his mind palace.
I mean, we get a little episode where the math flows through the air like fucking Sherlock Holmes mind palace shit. Gideon and Morgan go to the house to look it over.
Yeah.
As soon as they get there, they find out that another house has been broken into and another rich white woman has been attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And the police officer that they're with goes to check it out. And he wants Morgan and Gideon to go with him. And Morgan says, whatever we find in this house will help you prosecute. And then they proceed to walk through the entire house without gloves.
But they did say that the scene has already been processed. It's just still locked up.
Right, and I have that in my notes that it's already been processed. All the stuff's been taken out of it. But like, if you're still looking for stuff that'll help someone prosecute, shouldn't you still be taking those extra steps?
Again, like I said, this show doesn't care about the prosecution of it, baby. Just as soon as they catch the guy, they're done. They're done.
That's not my problem.
That's not their problem anymore. It's not Derek Morgan's problem that he climbs in through the exact window that just got dusted for prints earlier that day. It's not his problem. That's not his problem.
Yeah. Okay, they figure out that he's breaking things because he's jealous, that he had to have spent like a lot of time there. So he's like, his truck or car wouldn't have been noticed. So he's someone who like belongs in the neighborhood.
They also do a funny thing where Gideon is like, Gideon looks at the ground dramatically, drops to the ground to look under the bed, then he comes back up, he's like, he vacuumed. Whoa! It's just so dramatic of like, he fucking vacuumed, the sick fuck. He vacuumed.
And then he put the vacuum away. Yeah. So, I made a note. So Reed is wearing his gun on his hip in this episode. At some point, he starts wearing it on his front because people keep making fun of him for it. So Reed actually gets less competent with his gun as time goes on. I just made that little note. I was like, what the fuck? Why did they like make that a thing later when he like knows how to wear it earlier?
He just, man, Spencer
I'm
Reed.
gonna ask every question about this show. I know there's no answers. I'm gonna ask every question I can about this show.
Eventually, though, you have to think, over 15 years that we're going to be doing this podcast, we'll probably get somebody with at least a few answers on at some point, you know? So then we can have a super cut of all of your questions play and then just lightning round it out.
Q&A, Matthew Gray Goobler.
Yeah,
Why does Reed have the Reed effect in episode 1 and never again? Great. Why does he was deciding on his front? Great.
Literally.
Why not just wear glasses the whole time? Great. Like, just some questions I have. Okay. Gideon once again comes up with a profile on his own. So I realized that in this early season, we talked about Gideon having main character syndrome.
He has main character disease pretty bad.
Yeah. So everyone else on his team is essentially just kind of like a researcher.
Yeah.
You know, like really it's Derek, Elle, and Reed are researchers. JJ's the PR person. Garcia's the tech person who is constantly bragging about how like good she is and stuff, but has not done anything yet.
Shut up. Don't question it.
I love her to death. She calls JJ Peaches in this episode.
That's such a fun, cute friend nickname.
Yeah, I literally wrote it down. I was like, oh my god. She calls JJ, she's like, Peaches, that's not a problem. I was like, Peaches. That's cute. They're besties. I have seen two pretty best friends. Okay, so yeah, and then Hotch is also like a researcher for Gideon, but he has some more like he has the ability to question Gideon, and nobody else
has
does.
the keys to the research lab. Nobody else does.
Right.
Except for Gideon.
Right. Gideon's the research professor. Hotch is his TA.
Yeah, literally. Everybody else is just poor undergrads. And
JJ's the receptionist. Like, that's kind of the metaphor here.
Yeah.
So they present the profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
JJ is not in the room when they give the profile.
She's just not there.
She's just not there, which I think is really interesting because later, even when she's communications liaison, she is
She's
in the
there.
room. And I have a feeling that after North Mammon is where she starts getting more input. And you'll know that episode when you see it. I love her. Um, but she's very underutilized.
Yeah. They just needed a woman.
They really just needed a woman press agent.
Yeah, literally that's it.
Yeah. And they're
They
like, here's a
didn't,
pretty
like I said, they
blonde.
didn't know what to do with her. So they were just like,
Yeah.
no, she's not in this
Yeah.
one.
I really
Bye.
think it is a testament to AJ Cook's screen presence, to her acting ability, to just her like strength in the room, that she took this like tiny three
Shitty
lines
little
an
role.
episode role
Yeah.
and became fucking Jennifer Giroux. Like,
Yeah.
like it could have been nothing. I mean, the same thing with Kirsten,
Mm-hmm.
like the two of them had these like bit parts, things just needed to be filled. So they just put two women in it. And
Mm-hmm.
both of them were so wonderful that
It's
they
also,
were there. Yeah.
I love that they, in later seasons when they're doing the one season wonders with the ladies,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I call them, and I do love them all dearly.
Yeah, but they
I do
are.
love all those filler agents so much. It's a testament, I think, to how like you can build something fucking solid if you have like a foundation of JJ and Penelope and
Yes.
like Derek and Reed. Like that's a
Yeah.
fucking solid foundation to put anybody on. And I really
Yeah.
do think it's a testament to how well those actors work together. And you can even see the beginnings of it here where like it's like little shit. Like sure maybe Spencer gets hard eyes because JJ constantly calls him Spence, but that's like a nickname that the rest of the team does later. Like it's
Yeah.
just like they do so much with so little interaction time in these first
Yeah.
seasons that they're like we're gonna use the 30 seconds of bullshit time to call each other cute nicknames like Peaches. And
Right. And
it's such a
yeah.
good character building thing. These actors are very smart in the way that they
Yeah.
build characters off of nothing.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, when we talk about these characters being fleshed out, I really feel like it's more like the perfect actors for the role. Like
Yeah.
the reason Criminal Minds resonates so hard, lasted so long, is like the perfect actors playing the perfect characters for them, the crew knowing how to show that off, the writers eventually like learning that rhythm and that bond, like it's really something about the people in the room. If it had been like a different actor. Something I learned, the footpath killer guy,
Mm-hmm.
he was going to be Reed originally.
Oh.
Yeah, and then that actor was unsure if he wanted to do like a whole series, so it was Spencer instead. Yeah, like we could have gotten a much different, darker Spencer Reed, and it would have been good, but
It would have just been way different.
yeah, like it's like this version of these characters was with these actors really built something solid as hell. I mean, to the point where like when, spoiler alert, JJ leaves, there is so much backlash that she's back by the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like people are like, no, fuck you. Like this is the character that you've built. This is the character we want to see. Bring AJ Cook back. Fuck you. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's so fun to see the early part of these characters. Is like that's the thing that's getting me through these dark days of season 1 where it's like yeah, sure, everybody sucks, but next season they're going to be a little bit better. There's even a fun interaction between fucking Elle and Gideon. Who like Elle like asks him about the birds, and you see Gideon do like a cute thing where he's like, "Oh yeah, it's that kind of bird," and they like have a good little like back and forth about fucking birds, and then of course Gideon big brains it out to be like the fucking telephone poles.
I wrote down, this is the first time Gideon talks about birds.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And
like I just think that's such a fun like they put down just little bricks. They're just laying some bricks here. It's not quite a foundation just yet, but they're laying a few little bricks, and it's a good little you made some good little bricks. You don't have a full foundation yet, but you did some good lay work here.
I feel like that's a point at like season 5 where they could have stopped making this show about crime and made it entirely about their home lives and them being friends, and people would have been like, yeah,
Okay, sure, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you couldn't because it goes against the fact that the show is called Criminal Minds.
I mean,
But, like,
sure.
yeah, no, they really do. They do explore it more because, and I think they were able to do that because they had such a solid foundation
Yeah.
built from season 1 and from the
Yeah.
actors being so fucking good and
Yeah.
like having little things like Gideon really likes birds and Elle really hates men, and that's all you need to know about them, and that's fine.
It's so interesting that they like the things they choose to tell us. Like, we do not know JJ's birthday. We don't know how old she is. We don't know any of that, but we like see her hometown. We meet her mom. We see her house with her husband and her kids. It's like we see that stuff, but like, tell me how old she is. How old is JJ? Like, it's just
Yeah.
like interesting the stuff that they like choose to give you. Like, I know that Hotch, for some reason, is 2 years younger than Emily Prentice.
Don't think about things too hard, James. Don't think about things too hard.
I only have the too hard mode.
James, turn off your brain. Let's go back to this plot, to this episode plot, to this case plot.
So, Gideon and... Oh, we skipped something. So, the other break-in that happened...
Yeah.
No. Hotch and Elle are there.
Mhm.
And it's like a woman has been attacked in her kitchen. Her husband came home and caught the guy. Right away, there's an discrepancy because this other guy knows when the husband would not be there. So
Yeah.
why would he attack moments before the husband gets home?
Mhm.
2, we learn that he's wearing a ski mask, which
Mhm.
this guy would never have done because the whole point is to be seen. And
Yeah.
3, it's a black guy who
Yeah.
would have been noticed in that fancy-ass
Neighborhood.
neighborhood because racism and classism.
Yeah. Elle has this great line when she goes to talk to this woman. Is this woman is surrounded by men, and you can tell that she's nervous and not thinking straight, and her husband's just doing all the speaking for her and everything like that. And Elle's just like, I'm gonna go talk to her. Hot's just like, why? She's like, she's surrounded by men.
Yeah.
And like, so true, misinterest Elle. So true, ma'am. So
Elle hates
true.
men. Elle hates men.
She hates men so much, but also like it's just such a, you can tell she like gives this woman like space. And I know they're just like kind of drawing off of Elle's background in sex crimes, but she gives this woman space. She's like, I'll be right behind this door when you want to talk. Just like sit out here for a little bit and hang. It's all right. And it's just like, this is such a fun side of Elle, and it shows like her expertise and why they need her in a way that like this episode finally feels that she's like gelling with the team. She's a member of the team now.
I think that they really do have JJ replace Elle personality wise once Elle leaves. Because, JJ becomes that like comforting person. Well, first off, they start taking her on fucking cases. And second off, she does become that like comforting, I know what it's like to be a woman in a man's space. And JJ also hates men.
JJ also hates men so goddamn much.
JJ hates men so goddamn much. Yeah.
But it's also, I don't know, it's so neat to see. There's things about Elle's character that I actually really do like. I know not a lot of people really, really love Elle because she's pretty one-dimensional, but there's this little dimension of like her when she's interacting with other women, or when she's like, in the first episode when she's like, I'm not gonna send a SWAT team into a house with children. Like, there's just like this little bit of like, sure, she hates men so goddamn much, as she should, queen. But like, then she's also really sweet when it comes to ladies, and I know that's just because she's a raging lesbian, but that's fine. She's like really sweet when it comes to like ladies and kids, and I'm like, okay, yeah, queen.
No, I think it does add a good dimension to her. I think they really could have made her just like a man-hating, angry person, and I think her interaction with women and girls and kids shows that like she's angry for a reason.
Yeah, she has good reason to be angry because I'm just gonna gesture wildly here. Pretty much everything she has a good reason to be angry about.
Yeah, I think it does a good job of being like, Elle isn't this angry, Latina who hates white people and men and fuck them. It's more just like she has been through a lot. And, I think like most women would agree, it's safer to be suspicious of the people who, as a general group, try to hurt you the most, you know? So she's very much like, I'm gonna get this girl out of here. Let me talk to this woman. Like, you're scaring the kids, all you men in suits, you know? And I think that is a good thing. And she's kind of sexy.
She is. I love a mean woman. Queen, step on me. I love it. Be mean to me, honey. I love you.
Okay. So
Also, I do just have to say, she is Italian.
yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Hate that.
She is Italian.
They did cast an Italian to play a Hispanic woman, like they love to do.
It's weird. Why did they Hispanic code her? Why is that?
I mean, they have been doing that since the days of fucking West Side Story. Everyone in West Side Story, the movie, with the exception of Rita Moreno, is Italian in brown face.
Yeah, I really hate that, huh?
Yeah, it's because Italians are white. So they cast, they'd rather cast like I mean, this isn't going to sound good, but like a brown skinned white person. You know what I mean? Like they'd rather cast like a dark skinned white Italian than a Hispanic person. I mean, what's her face? Flora Lima, right? Florina Lima from Supergirl was Italian. It's a big problem. I have a lot of opinions about Hispanic people being played by other nationalities. Hollywood do be saying all brown women the same though.
Yeah, wow, they really do, huh?
Yeah, and as a Cuban American, it makes me very angry.
That's
anyway.
Fair.
So yes, she's Italian playing Hispanic. Is she Puerto Rican?
They really don't expand on it, other than
I feel like she says she's Puerto Rican.
I don't think she does. I don't think she ever says.
If they don't say, they just assume they're Puerto Rican. Because that's what they like to do in Hollywood. Excuse me. Oh my god, Elle's nickname is Peanut. It's cute.
Elle's unnamed mother is Cuban, and she's fluent in Spanish.
Half Cuban.
So she's...
Okay, I will accept the portrayal.
To say that she's Cuban.
I'll accept the portrayal of a half Cuban woman. I do not accept that they've chosen an Italian woman to play her.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. I guess it counts as half Cuban rep. I'm happy about that, but also cast a fucking half Cuban.
I mean, like, what the fuck? Or just cast a fucking Cuban, or anybody who's not white.
Literally anybody who's not white. Like, I know she's not like white skin tone, but like she's a European.
She's Italian. She's
Italian.
Still white.
I followed her on Instagram. I love her Instagram, but she's.
Does she have a fun Instagram?
She does. Oh, she does some acting stuff still. I was like wondering what she was like up to. Yeah, it's cute. Just kids.
We really just come on here and we are like,
we're talking about Criminal Minds.
This is barely a podcast that we're like, oh my god, is her Instagram fun? I'll have to go check it out.
Let me tell you about this other show. Okay, this is barely a podcast.
This is barely a podcast.
Okay, we're back at the show. We gotta be back.
We've been recording for an hour and 10 minutes, and we barely have a podcast.
Wait, we were just recording for half an hour before.
No. We've been recording for an hour and 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, let's get back to this case then. They kind of set a trap for the Tommy killer to come out and talk to them. Because they have Morgan and Elle go arrest the dude. And he pretty much, like, admits it immediately.
Arrest the kid who attacked the old woman.
Yeah, so they arrest the kid who attacked the old woman. He pretty much, like, he sings like a canary immediately.
Yeah.
Which I love that they do that to absolve the guilt of putting a potentially innocent person all over TV, saying that he's a rapist. I love that they do that, so they're like, don't worry, guys. He's definitely guilty. Guys, don't even think about it. This guy definitely did the other crime.
Oh, yeah.
I love that they just work that as like an absolute. They're like, guys, don't worry about it.
He did it, though. Yeah.
So they say that this kid is the Tommy killer.
JJ gives a press conference with her back to the street, and Elle and Morgan drive up and like walk the kid in. And JJ's like, and that's all we know at this time. Bye. And like laughed and was like, they think it's him. It'll be on the 11 o'clock news. Which, like, the 11 o'clock news.
I love that they do that. This is a thing that they do fairly frequently. Is
Yeah.
they put on a fucking show. These are not
Yeah.
just like dumb FBI kids. These are former theater kids, y'all. You know that they are. They are putting on this fucking pageantry right now.
Yes. We see that
Wow.
good professional JJ Mask.
Yeah. She's like, we have a person of interest. We can't say anything more at this time. Meanwhile, they are just traipsing this dude in behind them. Like,
And then she walks inside and she's like, it totally worked.
We'll be on the 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so they are counting on the real Tommy Killer to call them and be like, you got it wrong, you fucking dumb idiots.
Which he does.
When he absolutely does. However, Garcia isn't able to get a trace on him because he routes it through like 100 different substations. 25 different substations of phone towers. So she can't route it back at all. So
and
go ahead.
And he tells them on the phone that he's going to kill the next day to show that they haven't caught him. So now there's a deadline. They got to figure it out. They've got a day.
They got to figure this shit out. Yeah. Real quick.
And it's 11 p.m. because we know that because it showed on the 11 o'clock news. So. Is there an 11 o'clock news? It's a 24-hour news cycle now.
Well,
like
there's still like the flagship programs at like 10 and 11.
Yeah. So in the morning, the team stakes up the neighborhood. There's quadruple patrols because after the third murder, when they realized that so basically the first three murders happened, nobody put this guy's name, like nobody realized it was the same person. Yeah. So he started writing those quotes on the mirror so they would know that it's a serial killer.
Him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after that third murder, when they realized it was a serial killer, that they doubled the patrol in the area. And then after the most recent murder, that the BAU...
it again.
Yeah, they doubled it again after the BAU got called in. So now there is 4 times the normal number... That's math, right? 4 times the normal number of... Yeah, twice and then twice. That's 4.
Okay, yeah, sure. Sorry, I was like really confused for a second. Yeah, no, I got you. I'm not good at math. Continue.
I'm not a math gay. Yeah, so there's a lot of police out, and then the team is out in unmarked cars. They're like trying to figure it out. Reed and Morgan have a very cute interaction where Morgan's like, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And Morgan says, no, it's like looking for a needle in a needle stack or a stack of needles. And Morgan's like, what? And Reed says, a needle would stick out in a haystack. Which wouldn't? There's a reason that phrase exists, Reed. And he was like, we're looking for a specific needle in a stack of needles. Like, okay. But if all the needles are the same in that stack, just take any. And then if it's a different needle, then like, that would stick out. But like one tiny needle in a stack of hay. Okay, whatever. Morgan is like, ah ha 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 ha.
Spencer Reed has never seen a fucking haystack in his life if he thinks you can find anything easily in there. He has not set foot on any sort of dirt road, any sort of farm. He has not laid eyes on an actual haystack.
No, he has not. He went from like one city, wherever the fuck he was born, Vegas. He went from Vegas to fucking grad school to DC. Man has never seen a farm.
It's like, you can't find shit in a haystack because... You couldn't find a person in a haystack if the haystack was big enough because hay, here's a fun thing about hay, it makes everything very quiet. They use it as insulation for a reason because it gets very warm and blocks out noise. You can't find shit in a haystack.
Especially not a needle.
Spencer Reed and his just blatant disrespect of farm life will be the death of me. Hi, I grew up in Iowa. I'm angry about it.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
This is our first episode in 2020 and we're 2021 and we're spending the whole episode complaining about Jeid. What's up? New year, new negative energy. Let's go.
Listen, you can tell how fascinating this episode was by the fact that we can't talk about it.
We've been recording for an hour and 20 minutes and we ain't got shit. So Gideon and Elle are paired up in this little mission, and I think that's actually a very interesting pairing because, like I said, they have like some good talking time.
Also, Elle almost always drives. Like, Gideon's in the driver's seat in this case, but Elle is like, give me the keys, I'll get the car. And then in all the previous episodes, she always drives. I just
Because
noticed
she's
that.
a fucking dyke. I love her.
Gideon is like, I'm gonna drive. And she's like, excuse me, no. And he's like, Elle, that's an order. And she's like, fine.
Fine. Literally. She just doesn't listen. She's a woman in charge of her own fate, and if her own fate includes driving, then that's what she'd do. She's not gonna let anybody else drive in the car of life for her.
Nice metaphor there.
I made that a metaphor.
The car of life. Okay. Talk about the goddamn birds.
So Elle is like looking up at the like telephone wires, and there's a little bird that comes up and like flies on to rest on the wires, and she's like, oh, is that what kind of bird is that? And Gideon answers immediately.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a fucking, brown, I don't know what fucking kind of bird it was.
It was like a
He's
cardinal
like,
or something.
Yeah, he's like, it's a brown-breasted chest beak or some shit like that. And he's like,
it's a female.
Immediately. And then the next one that pops up, he's like, oh look, another brown-breasted chest beak, which is not a bird, but and this one's a female. And then he looks at there for a second longer, and Jason Gideon genuinely smiles at this. He looks like he's having a good time watching these birds. These birds look like the only thing that have brought him joy in the past week and a half.
He has a whole monologue
about birds.
About how men have to dress up to get girls' attention. They scream and they cry because deep down they know they have no biological significance. And like he has this whole like incel rant about the shit men have to do to get women. And Elle's like, can't relate.
Anyway, I'm gay.
Anyway, so like birds. And he's like,
anyway, so birds.
Yeah.
And he, though, like looking at these birds, it's the only time he has looked happy. Literally, he just has a smile.
He fucking loves birds, man. Gideon's one true passion is fucking birds.
It really is. But like,
so while he's staring at these birds, he sees the phone lines, and he's like, "Oh damn!"
It's like, hold the fuck up.
Yeah, and then they go back to the woman's house. They go to,
the bedroom,
the original house, and they goes to the bedroom, lays on the bed, as if he's the woman. Which I don't know why he didn't before, because like they always roleplay and shit, but whatever.
He hasn't.
It would have been solved too easily.
He hasn't gone this far in his LARPing career just yet. He hasn't started his full live action roleplays yet.
You're right. He hasn't committed to his role as a tiefling yet.
Exactly. He really needs to, like, he's really trying to decide if he wants to be, like, a fighter or a paladin. He really, like, has not decided yet. And so that sort of indecision is killing him.
Yeah. So he lays down on the bed. He looks at the window and he sees that the woman was staring at the telephone pole. Because they realize that, like, the reason he glues their eyes shut, we know, is because he's an exploitative rapist. And he wants them to look at him. While he's raping them, but all of them were on their back with their faces turned away, so like they wouldn't have been looking at him. And Gideon realizes like he wanted them to see him afterwards, and that's why they're staring up at the telephone pole, and that's how he realizes it's a telephone pole worker.
Repairman. Telephone pole repairman. I love the sequence of events that unfolds from Gideon's big brain moment, because Gideon has this big brain moment. And then he calls the phone company or Penelope, and he's like, this call was routed through 25 different substations. Who would know how to do that? Here's the guy's name. And he calls Hotch with that information, and they're just done with that whole, here's the guy, in like a minute or less. They're just like, here's the dude. His name's fucking Franklin Gainey. That's our guy. Let's get him.
But it's like, so this is what I love about it, is that Morgan and Reed go to the Bell office.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't even call. They just go to the Bell office. And the guys at the front desk like, hey, how can I help you? And Morgan goes, FBI agents, we need a list of where all of your workers are. And the guy goes, FBI? And Reed goes, where are your workers right now? And he goes, oh, and Morgan goes, listen, we need, and it's like, dude, give the guy a second. Like, FBI people just came into his boring ass job. Like, give him a second. Damn.
Give this man
Morgan,
like a minute or two.
he would have helped you. He does in the next second. He just
And yet,
needed a minute. Okay. So they find out who he is. They find his truck. They find the house. Gideon goes in. The guy's like in the middle of tying a woman up.
they have this baby
Oh, God.
losing his fucking mind.
I was like, what a young baby actor. What did they
Exactly.
do to this baby?
What did they do to this kid? Or how do you explain to a child, child actor,
2
that
years
you
old
need
max.
you need him to lose his fucking mind?
I
How do you
realized,
explain
though,
that to a baby?
they never show the baby's like mouth. So I bet it's like an adult voiceover actress.
No, they show his mouth.
They do?
Go, yeah, they do. They do a pan around for when
Gideon comes in?
when Gideon comes in, they do a pan around, and he like, it's like you're looking from Gideon's point of view, and you see the baby's mouth moving as he's losing his shit.
I still think it's probably ADR.
Oh, it definitely was, but like, hot damn.
Yeah.
What a baby and or baby voice actor that was losing his fucking mind
baby
there.
voice actor. No, it was crazy. Yeah, that was really, really intense. Yeah. So Gideon calls and it's like, it's this address. And he goes upstairs and he's talking to the guy. And basically he tells the guy, like, if you kill her, I'll make sure that nobody ever forgets about you. Or if you kill her, I'll make sure everyone forgets about you. No one's going to know your name. No one's going to talk about you. Every now and then they'll be like, hey, remember that one guy? What happened to him? Oh, well. And then, but if you let her live, I'll tell everybody what your name is. And you'll be famous. And whatever. And the guy's like, I mean, that's all I want, really.
Yeah.
I wish that we had got to see some more of this guy, his home life, because right before he makes the phone call where he's like, I am death, we see him watching TV and he squeezes a can of like store brand root beer so hard it punctures. And then a woman is like, shut up, and he's like, oh, sorry. Like, is that his mom? Is that his wife? Like, what was the situation there?
I think they kind of mentioned it as like, this guy is almost certainly under the thumb of a powerful woman at home, and this is how he's like acting out. I'm like, okay, like teenagers act out by dyeing their hair and getting their ears pierced. This man is murdering women. It's a little more than acting out, but okay. And so they just like, I love that they have the ye old sitcom trope of just like woman yells from the other room.
Right.
It's just so
like,
they like
why?
they don't do that often. They must have only been able to like get this guy. They must have had to record this episode in like very little time, because they did not have a lot of scenes with this dude. They paid him like a day maybe.
Well, we only see his face in the last scene. The one in front of the TV is totally in shadow. The rest of the time, it's his hands only, or POV, you know? So, like, they could have gotten that actor literally for that one fucking scene. The rest of the time, it's just like some dude.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, budget constraints, that's probably what it was. Is they only paid this dude for, like, a day and had to record all of his scenes in 6 hours. Like, that's probably what it was.
Yeah. Wow, see, episode 4, you're already having your budget constraints. It's all the music. Also just like, they started paying for music and they couldn't pay their actors anymore.
Exactly. No, I mean, the other thing is, that's just something, I don't know, that I'm more cognizant that I think about. I'm like, okay, so you saved some money on this episode so you could do something else later.
Sure.
Like, you have to think of the whole season. Yeah. The whole season picture more than you think of like one individual episode. Like, oh man, you really bungled this episode's budgeting. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just something that I think about when I only see the killer for like a scene or two. I'm like, okay, so you only got him for one day. So you only had to pay his union rate for one day. Good job. Like,
Good job there.
everything else was just an extra or whatever. Yeah, like it's just fun to think about because I like the construction of things, which, you know, I'm the only person on earth who does, but
okay, so they catch him, they arrest him. That's it.
they catch him, they arrest him.
Okay.
They say that they're gonna make him famous, but they won't.
And then we get on the plane.
Yeah.
Gideon says, "Oh, I didn't give you your present." And Reed says, "You never give birthday presents." Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Gideon was like, "We gotta get this kid laid, though." And the only woman I know who might sleep with the man is JJ. That is so funny. So he gives him the tickets. Reed doesn't know that the Redskins are a football team. He opens them he says, Gideon, "I didn't know this was football."
I think Gideon kind of sets Reed up for failure here by not explaining the concept of football at all. And I think that's so funny.
And Gideon's like, "Yeah, you can have a great time." And Reed's like, "Well, you're coming with me, right?" And he's like, "No. You know who else on this plane likes football?" And Reed says, "I didn't even know this was a football team." Oh yeah, great couple. They're gonna do great together.
Also, like a football ticket, like sports tickets, you have to be able to infer from the ticket that it's a football game, right?
I mean, if it says Redskins, it would be at what are the fucking football stadium?
If it was Washington football team, it would be Washington at probably the Patriots would be closest to them, or Jets.
DC football stadium. No, because there's a stadium in Cardinal Stadium. Wait, is that no, there's a stadium in fucking Baltimore because of the Ravens.
Oh yeah, the fucking Ravens, duh. I don't know, like I feel maybe it's because
Kennedy Stadium.
Maybe it's because Reed has so much useless knowledge about everything. I feel like he would at least like they set up that Reed has so much knowledge about like traffic patterns and buildings in cities he doesn't even live in like LA. They make that a point. And like how does he not know that this stadium houses football? You know?
The thing that how would he not know there's a football stadium in his
Also, how does he not know the basics of like football teams? I know you're trying to play like a boy genius, but like boy genius should know a few things about just like general things. Like have him as everything. I don't know.
He rides the Metro and he has an eidetic memory. I ride the DC Metro. I wrote it in the before times. But they have movie posters, sports posters. Even if he had just one time glanced at a pillar with an ad for a fucking Redskins game on NBC, he'd know it was a football team.
Yeah. It doesn't. The things they make Spencer Reed not know make no fucking sense.
Like, he doesn't know what Twilight is. But, like, I understand not seeing the movies. I understand not reading the books. I understand not knowing the actors. Like, but Twilight as a cultural phenomenon would have been unavoidable.
Yeah.
If he had seen one person wearing a fucking Twilight shirt, he would know it was a piece of pop culture media at least. It wouldn't be, what's Twilight? It'd be, I only know the name.
The movie posters for Twilight were unavoidable and obnoxious everywhere.
Definitely in the Metro.
Definitely in the Metro.
I don't, like, I if he went to a magazine stand to get fucking Time or National
Science
Geographic,
Weekly or what the fuck ever it is,
the fucking chess magazine that apparently exists, he would have seen something about Twilight on it. He would have seen something about the Redskins. He reads the newspaper, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I know for a fact the Redskin runs ads in the newspaper. Okay. He doesn't know the football team. And Gideon is like, okay, well, they just so happen to be your coworker JJ's favorite football team. And Reed is like, oh, I guess I'll go ask her out. Oh, there's a moment earlier that we missed where Reed looks at Al and thinks, like, and says, why do you think I can't get a date? And Al says, do you ask people out? And he goes, no. And she's like, well, that's why you can't get a date.
That's such practical dumb lesbian advice. I love
but, like,
it
do you
so
ask
goddamn
people
much.
out, though? He's like, oh, no one dates me. And she's like, do you try to date people? Idiot. Like,
She's like, fucking be practical for once in your life. Ask somebody out, dipshit.
I know. And then he does ask JJ out, and it does not go well, and he doesn't date anyone again for like 3 seasons. Poor boy. Yeah, so he asks her out, and she is entirely unaffected by it. And then the episode ends. Oh, and,
so bored.
He sits next to her, and she's literally like, I'm doing paperwork. And he's like, hey, I heard you like football. And she's like, yeah. Anyway, I'm doing paperwork. Like,
and Hotch is sitting directly across from her,
oh, God.
looking like he's about to watch the best soap opera of his goddamn life.
Hotch is like, please Reed, please fucking ask her out. Reed, ask this lesbian out. Please, Reed, ask JJ out for me, please. Like, it's so funny. Yeah, and that's the first time that Reed ever beats Gideon in a chess game. He's like, I'm gonna go ask her out. Checkmate. His raw sexual energy helped him beat Gideon at chess.
This man fucks and also wins at chess now.
But it's interesting. What makes that moment so interesting to me is that in Compulsion, we learn that he can't win at chess because he doesn't think outside the box. He has no creativity.
This man fucks and now he thinks outside the box.
Yeah, it's literally like, Rita's like, what if I ask somebody else out? I'm good at chess. Checkmate.
It's just...
like, what?
It just makes me laugh.
She's busy. She's got things to do.
Busy. She's got no time for romance, okay?
He was like, hey, you want to go on a date with me this Saturday? And she was probably like, if I say no, is that worse than going once and bringing my best friend along? Or... But season 14 makes it sound like she didn't even realize it was a date. Can you imagine a man, ignore that it's Reed, a man walks up to you, hands you 2 private box tickets to a Redskins game in DC, and you're like, that's nice of him. Yeah, I'll hang out with my bud. I'll bring another bud. Oh yeah. Like, the only thing worse would have been if she went, thank you, and took both tickets. That's the only thing that would have been ruder than what she did. As if she'd gone, thanks, I know you don't like football. I'll just take these. Hey, Penelope, you want to go see a football game with me? I think that's the end of the episode. I've gotten my catharsis about Jeid out.
I feel relieved. We started recording this episode when the sun was clearly in the sky. It is now pitch black outside my window.
Wow. It has been an hour and a half, hasn't it?
Time has passed, and it has come time once again for us to rank this episode. How much do you like this episode? Through it all, through the Jeid of it all, let's assign a numerical ranking to this episode. Let's just do let's just do one ranking for the whole episode. Okay. So you do your whole ranking for the whole episode, case and all. I don't think this is a very good episode.
Yeah, I mean, literally, we could not talk about it less.
We tried our hardest to talk about everything except this actual episode. Woo. So, what does that tell you about us?
That we have good taste and this is a bad episode.
You're correct.
I'll give it I don't know, like a 3.
A 3? Giving it a 3? I mean, yeah.
Is that high? Do you think that's high or low?
I mean, I was honestly gonna give it a 4.
I was thinking either a 3 or a 4. Maybe give it a 4 for me. Give it a 4 because
give it a 4? Okay.
This is the Jeid episode. I guess that counts. You know what?
We're past
give it a 3.
Now.
No, give it a 3.
Okay, we're back to 3. Okay, I got you.
Fuck that.
They don't say Wheels Up. Do they say the episode title? They say In Plain Sight at some point. Or I mean, they say the words plain sight,
Plain
right?
sight.
They say that, right?
I think so. I think when Gideon's like, they'd be right here in plain sight.
Yeah, okay, perfect. They say the episode title. Next time on Wheels Up, we're going to be talking about episode 105, Broken Mirror, which will be an episode, certainly. It will certainly be an episode of this podcast.
Things will happen in it.
Things will happen. We'll probably make some dumb jokes. So we come out every other Wednesday. Until then, you can find us on all podcast platforms and all social media platforms at Wheels Up Pod. All of that, Insta, Twitter, all that good stuff. If you would be so kind, please, please, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It does help us out way, way more than you know. James, is there anything else you want to say to end this episode?
No. I mean, I want to say hell yeah!
Hell yeah! That was a strong hell yeah. I just popped my microphone to high hell with that one. That was a firm hell yeah. Do we have like an outro for this? Do you have a quote? Do you have a quote you want to say?
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Wheels Up with James and B. Ooh. And we'll meet you on the plane.
We'll meet you on the plane. We're still finding out an intro.
This is hard. This podcast stuff is hard.
Outros are difficult.